You probably have heard the phrase "you snooze, you lose," and I use it all the time. And it wasn't until really recently that I realized that it's absolutely correct. You snooze, you lose. And I bet you that if you're anything like me, you feel like you're always chasing the next win, the next goal, the next high, but it never feels quite enough. Now, I want to tell you a little bit about why, and we're going to answer this question within this video and this podcast, whichever way you happen to be listening to me. If you are listening again, you've heard about dopamine, and that is the brain's motivation and reward chemical. It has helped us as humans to evolve for many years when we were cave people. It was the thing, the chemical that got us up in the morning, that gave us the motivation to hunt, to find shelter, to connect with each other, build relationships, to make us feel safe. We make dopamine when we are starting to do something hard. Now, we are not cave people anymore. We are actually these supposedly evolved humans. And we need to really understand how dopamine fits into our life. Now, most of us, when we are starting our days now as these evolved humans, we are draining ourselves of dopamine. Hence, why I said if you snooze, you lose. When you first wake up, there is a level of dopamine that your body has created. And when you stay in bed, when you don't move, or you are sedentary right away, right, snoozing, then you're not using that dopamine that is helping you and motivating you and getting you going. And once you get going, you continue to produce that dopamine. Now, for many of us, we didn't really realize that. As a tiny habits coach, one of the things that I use every morning is that first tiny habit of getting up in the morning and saying, it's going to be a great day. And now I realize that doing that is helping me also not only get into motion, but create that positive feeling that gets me going. We have seen a phenomenon overall in this day and age that most of us feel tired, overwhelmed, and it's mainly because we're starting our day by reaching for our phones and going directly into social media. And it's really something that is taking us away from getting going, getting motivated. And we need to explore why our habits are really hindering us in achieving the things that we want to. Let me tell you a little bit about what I've been going through. In the past few months, since my mom has moved in with me, I don't get up as early as I used to. And when I am getting up, I actually have snoozed a couple different times. And I'm not going to lie, I reach for my phone and I'm looking either at social or I'm looking at my messages, and immediately I don't feel very motivated to move throughout my day. Now, in the days, and I've been doing this unintentionally, honestly, for the past few days, I have been getting up right away and getting going with my day. I bring the dogs downstairs, I make the coffee, and I start getting some action done. And this reminded me that when I went in the Camino de Santiago, that's why I had so much energy and my dopamine was working and producing more dopamine because I was looking forward to my day. When I got up, when I was in the Camino de Santiago, I immediately got into action as opposed to what I've been doing right now, living in Connecticut in the comfort of my own home. I just kind of sit and kind of putz around and not get moving. So, dopamine is something that is going to create motivation. And the pleasure and pain in our brain is interconnected. So we need to learn how to be able to leverage dopamine and not rely on it in a way that is going to be detrimental to our brain, to our well being, and to achieving our goals. So we're going to learn how to break free from unhealthy dopamine habits. Now, as I mentioned, dopamine is that thing that gets you motivated, but it's not just about giving you the pleasure of doing the thing. It's about the anticipation and the drive. As I was mentioning, when I went in the Camino de Santiago, I was so excited and anticipatory of what was to come, what was happening ahead of me. And a lot of times when we wake up in the morning, when we're starting our days, we're not necessarily looking at, oh, I'm excited for today. This is why the habit of it's going to be a great day and celebrating that I said that and I did that gets me going. The brain releases dopamine when we expect a reward. So if you're getting up in the morning and you're saying, oh, it's going to be a great day, let me look forward to this great day, your brain is already starting to produce that. Now, there are other things that triggers dopamine, right? Let's be real. It's going to be social media when we get our likes, when we get the positive comments reinforcing us, or when we open our phone and maybe someone has purchased one of your products or became a client. Maybe you're getting your dopamine when you are getting your morning coffee or you're playing video games right away. The entrepreneur cycle is always about chasing business and feeling unsatisfied we're not getting a result. And this is why a lot of people end up giving up in their business and entrepreneurship becomes very challenging because they're not getting the reward for what they are chasing. But dopamine, my friend, is something that is going to help you shape your habits, whether they're good or whether they're bad. There is a pleasure pain balance, like I mentioned, and the highs will lead to lows. And that's something that is very important. Most of us entrepreneurs will ride that roller coaster. Oh, we got a client. Oh, no, we don't. And it's very important to understand that that is normal. Now, the more we chase pleasure, right? The more that we are after, oh, I want to feel great because I have all these clients, the more pain, discomfort, boredom you are going to find because it's going to take a little bit much more to get you the high than you did before. There is a scientist, Dr. Anna Lemke, and in her research in Dopamine Nation, she talks about that. Now, there is a state of deficit when it comes to dopamine. Over time, our brain reduces the production of dopamine, making us crave that stimulation more in order to feel normal. And if you think about it, the more that we spend time on social media, the more that we are in that state seeking it, the more that it's going to take more, again, like I said, to satisfy us, but it's not going to be as rewarding, feel good, and it's going to burn us out. It's going to make us feel more anxious. It's going to also create restlessness. And this is something that, again, pushes our goals away. And when we are not moving to our goals, it's going to be something that we beat ourselves over. I know that I've done it, I see it with my clients all the time. So now you're probably asking yourself if this is what happens with dopamine, right? What are some of the things that we can do to kind of self regulate? Or perhaps what is the thing that we can do so that we are not in this dopamine chase like most of us are? The first thing that I'm going to say, and of course, it's not easy and it's going to be important to really create, is we need to practice dopamine fasting. What does that mean? Very simple. Take breaks from high dopamine activities. Social media, binge watching, constant goal chasing, whatever your dopamine hit is, make sure that you one, be aware of it, and two, create ways in which you can curb that and create the fast. It's interesting. Today is Fat Tuesday for those of us who are listening or you're checking out this episode when it drops. And we begin that time of fasting for Lent. And it would be a really great opportunity to decide that maybe this is the time that for the next 40 days, we are going to take a fast from the things that are not serving us. For instance, social media has become such a needed element as a business owner, but at the same time, it has that tendency to deplete us. So Start small. You don't have to change your habits, but maybe you decide that you're going to charge your phone somewhere else in your home as opposed to next to you, so that when you wake up in the morning, you're not immediately going into your phone. That's one way in which you can fast. Or perhaps if you find yourself that throughout the day you're scrolling when you feel bored, that would be another time in which, if you become aware of that, right? When I find myself scrolling, I will stand up and maybe do a couple lunges or sit ups, not sit ups. You can't, well, if you want to do a sit up, I guess you can, but do something to move your body, right? The other thing is that when you feel yourself doing the thing, don't beat yourself up over doing the thing. If you've created a habit of doing so, it's going to take some time for you to recalibrate and create a new habit. When I find myself scrolling throughout the day, is maybe because I'm in between two different activities, then I go and I grab a cup of tea, or I go and let my dogs out and I begin to move. And then that gives me the ability to really regulate that dopamine. And that is a great way to dopamine fast. If you are obsessed with chasing your goals and you're not giving yourself enough room to really be proud of the journey as opposed to the destination, you're going to find that is going to really be another thing that you need to fast from, the dopamine that is getting you from reaching your goals. Next, in order to reduce and break free from the dopamine, you want to go ahead and shift to intrinsic motivation. One of the things that most of us don't know, and we avoid it like the plague, is being bored. When I was little, I hated being bored, but the reality is that I got a lot of stuff that I would get into when I was bored. Why? Because becoming bored creates dopamine. And what we are doing is that if we find fulfillment in the process, right? Maybe the process of building a business, maybe the process of working out. For instance, when we're cooking, the cooking is the thing that gives you more pleasure than actually eating what you created. So, intrinsic motivation. When we run a business, if you are running a business because you're chasing a revenue goal, because you're chasing being in front of people, you're never going to be satisfied. You're going to be chasing the next thing. So, intrinsic motivation is going to be finding out, like, for instance, the impact that you're creating. Let me give you a plain example. When I meet with someone for a coffee chat, I love meeting new people. Now, obviously, meeting new people for my business is a great way to get new individuals to know about me and eventually go into that cycle of attraction, engaging with me nurturing the relationship, and then eventually inviting them and having them become a client. However, when I meet with somebody, I never go into the conversation with, like, oh, this may be a client. Why? Because that's an end goal, right? If I actually go into the meeting and think, oh, this is so exciting, I'm meeting a person. And all the time, if you've met with me on the phone or on Zoom, I will ask you this. Is there someone that I can support you meeting? I try to connect people with somebody else, and I go into the conversation really looking to find out about the person who I'm connecting with, really learning about what kind of impact they're creating in the world, and then figuring out who would be a great person for this person to also have in their universe. And that process of doing the connection, of being more focused on the fact of what I am doing as opposed to what my end game is for networking, then that helps me have that intrinsic motivation in my business. The other way that you can really break free from dopamine is, of course, we've heard this delay gratification. And we live in a microwave society. Delay gratification is not something that we like, that we're used to anymore. But our brain loves to do the deep work. So, chasing revenue goals, like I said, is the end game, and it's going to make you go into wanting more. However, if you are seeking the reward I want you to think about what are some ways that you can actually delay the gratification. And that's going to help you to really bring down and break free from those addictions to dopamine. Prioritizing deep work in your flow states again as entrepreneurs is something that I love. And I love when I am in my zone, when I am deeply looking at my work, or I'm creating some content, or I am planning something. And the reason that these activities help you break away from dopamine is because, again, they're not going to have external validation. So prioritize the things like reading, like creating, exercising. These are, again, the things that will create the external validation and will help you prioritize the deep flow states that will help you get rid of the dopamine. And of course, you can regulate your dopamine naturally with more sleep, nutrition, eating the things that feed your body, that bless you, as opposed to the things that give you that instant high. Mindfulness is another way in which you can really detox from that dopamine. Another one that I don't normally do it, like cold plunging, but being exposed to the cold is one way in which you can reduce that need for dopamine. And it helps to reset. Doing all these things will help to reset your dopamine. So, in closing, my friend, there is sustainable ways for us to stop the roller coaster, whether it be in our relationships, in our business, in our lives overall. So, I want you to stop chasing the dopamine, start creating sustainable fulfillment. And here's some action steps. Identify one place that is a dopamine driven habit and start to see how you can change it. And by the way, my dogs are involved in this conversation. Now, let me know in the comments here, or if you're on a podcast, send me a message at julie@goconfidentlycoaching.com and let me know what habit that is dopamine driven that you are trying to break. Until next time, my friends, I appreciate you. And don't forget, go confidently in the direction of your dreams.